Originally designed as an armoured troop and supply transport vessel for the Caldari armed forces before the secession from the Gallente Federation, the Kestrel is the only relatively untouched frigate design still in service that saw action during the Gallente-Caldari War, having originally been drafted into service roughly 2 centuries ago. To this day, the silhouette of the Kestrel is used as an icon of remembrance during the Caldari State's annual landfall celebration, which marks the arrival of the first settlers who were brought to New Caldari Prime after the evacuation of the Caldari homeworld. This formidable little vessel may be a little long in the tooth, but it can certainly hold its own, with brutal punching power and a rock-solid shielding system should the situation dictate the need to do so. Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie, and in today's video I'm going to be introducing you to the Caldari Kestrel, a ship so good it almost makes me wish I'd rolled Caldari as a starting faction. However, I'm Minimatar for life, and let's be honest, the Caldari frigate skills aren't exactly expensive to train, so yeah, but it is that good of a ship, right? That's the point I'm trying to make here. This tiny little vessel is super cheap to buy on the market, readily available, easy to fit, and incredibly versatile. You'll see new players using these, you'll see existing and long-term players using these as well for cheap PvP runners, Abyssal Deadspaces, mission runners. There's a whole plethora of content that this wee little beastie can pull off. In today's video, we're going to be focusing mostly on the Abyssal Deadspaces, particularly Tier 0 Darks. You can actually run any of the Tier 0 Tranquil Abyssal Deadspaces in this thing, but the Darks are going to be the easiest for you to clear, and easy and fast clearing means that you clear more of them, therefore more ISK per hour, right? Yeah, it's that simple. Now the fit that I'm going to be showing is also completely friendly to alphas and doesn't require all that much in the way of skill point investment either. If you have just started in EVE and you're watching this as where do I get going, then make sure you've clicked my referral link in the description of this video as well. That will net you a whopping 1 million free skill points, and if this is your first day playing EVE Online and you do that, you've got all the skill points you need to fly this bad boy already. Anyway, that all said and done, hit like on the video, let's jump right in. The thing that I love about this fit so much, or rather the two things, is how ridiculously cheap this is to buy and fit, about 6.5 million ISK, which is easy money on your first day just by doing the career agent missions and some of the air career. You'll get 6.5 million and be able to buy one of these, no trouble at all with all of these actual fittings. This is a day one skilled Kestrel. Again, use that million skill point boost if you haven't already, click the link in the description. Now, once you've got this, the most expensive part of operating this ship suddenly becomes the ammunition. This 6.5 million ISK is just the fittings. In fact, if I were to take about 1,000, 1,200 of each of the types of ammunition that I recommend, that's another 5 million just on its own, almost doubling the cost of the ship. But again, we can talk about that later. Now the fit that I'm going to be showcasing is what I recommend. Do those starting missions, get yourself 6.5 million ISK, buy this fit as you see it. You will quickly make that ISK back. That will allow you to buy a backup of this so you can have 2 of them in case you lose one of them, after which you can then start expanding and upgrading. And as your skills start to reach the point where you can use the Tech 2 modules, feel free to upgrade. This is the point that I would like to talk about, but you can absolutely upgrade beyond this in order to complete sites quicker, because the quicker you can complete sites, the more ISK you make per hour, the more money you make, and then you can just, yeah, you gotta spend money to make money is the point, and that's exactly how this works. So let's actually have a look at this fit in general. Now for the high slots here, being a Kestrel with its range bonuses, we are going for a light missile launcher, an Arbalest Compact to be exact. This gives us a 55-kilometer flight range using these Caldari Navy light missiles. Now it's worth remembering we're going to have Infernos, Mjolnirs, Scourge and Nova, so that we can swap them in and out based on the resistance holds of the enemy, and we'll talk about that more later in the combat demonstration. Point is, we can just orbit something at 40 or 50 kilometers, we can hit it, it's going to struggle to hit us, and that's how we're going to stay alive for the most part. For the mid slots, we've got a small Clarity Ward Enduring Shield Booster. This is just going to allow you to repair any damage to your shields that you do take. A small FS9 Regolith Compact Shield Extender, which is going to make your shields bigger, which means they passively recharge a little bit faster as well. All helps you to stay alive. Followed by a small compact Lead Acid Cap Battery. This helps our Capacitor remain stable, even with everything else running. The final slot that we have is a 1 meganewton monopropellant enduring afterburner. The concept of this is going to allow us to move quickly. Moving quickly makes us harder to hit and also allows us to keep our range. If we set our default orbit at 50 kilometers, we can start dealing damage almost immediately. Even if an enemy is moving faster than we can orbit and thus gaining ground on us, we're doing damage whilst they're still out of range, and by the time they're up close, hopefully they're already dead, right? And on that subject of hopefully they're dead before they reach us, 2 Crosslink compact ballistic control systems in the low slots finish this off and give us a decent whack of damage. Now the DPS itself might look low at, what's that, 98.6, 90.6 DPS? It's not huge. That's because light missiles have a whoppingly slow activation cycle speed. But the amount of damage you do per strike is pretty respectable. It's 754. You can actually kill some things in literally 2 or 3 strikes just for the sheer force you hit them with. So don't stress it too much. For the rigs though, we've gone for a small bay-loading accelerator. This allows you to cycle your missiles a little bit faster, which means you're launching them just that little bit quicker than they would be otherwise. We then have a small core defense capacitor safeguard, which just again helps with your shield booster not using too much of your capacitor, and a small core defense field extender, again increasing the size of your shields, which also means they recharge faster. Because they're bigger, they get more health back per second. It's just how shields work. Ultimately, that's the fit. Nice and cheap and easy, but let's showcase it in action and how to actually run these Abyssal Deadspaces, right? When running an Abyssal Deadspace as a solo frigate, it's important that you fleet up with yourself. Right-click on your name, choose Form Fleet With, and that's that bit done. You then need to warp out to somewhere in the middle of nowhere, like 100 kilometers off a star in high sec is usually good enough. And when you get there, you right-click your filaments and use them. Now, because you're a solo frigate, you're going to need 3 filaments at a time, so carry them in stacks of 3. You can see I've got 15, you might carry them in 9 or 6 or 3 or however you fancy. When you're learning, only carry a few at a time. That way, if you accidentally do lose your ship, and thus all of your cargo, you don't lose all of your filaments. Now, this creates a rift in space, we then activate it, and we jump into the Abyssal Deadspace itself. You can see we're using Tranquil Dark filaments for this. These are what I strongly recommend for a Kestrel. Now, once we're inside the dead space, we have 3 rooms to clear. Kill all the enemies in a room, then the gate opens, you can move into the next room, and then you have to clear all 3 rooms before the 20-minute timer. When you see an enemy for the first time, right-click it, go to Show Info, and look at its information there. If you saw that page, you can easily see that this is weakest to electromagnetic damage, which is why I'm loading in Mjolnir missiles. I'm orbiting the Triglavian Biocombinative Loot Cache. That gives me a nice target to orbit. As second I'm in range, I'm going to lock onto that Devoted Hunter and start shooting at it. This is arguably one of the scarier ships to face in this dead space with a Kestrel, because this thing can do some really quite nasty damage to you if it gets in range. You're going to see we're going to take big hits here as we're too close to it. But because the Kestrel wants to kite, essentially we can get a bit of range. I'm only orbiting at 20 kilometers here, but you probably want to orbit at say 40 just to be on the safe side. But I just want to show you that even being a little bit risky, you can still make this work. We're going to be shooting that Devoted Hunter. He's arguably out of range of us, or rather just not in proper range, so he's going to miss a lot. That really helps us survive. We're quite a small target and quite a fast target. Next strike should finish him off. It's worth noting that in Abyssal Deadspaces you don't get paid just for killing things. You need to get the loot, and then you sell that loot at Concord stations. So we're going to now shoot open this Triglavian Biocombinative Loot Cache. Boom, off it goes. Open cargo and take everything. Loot all. Those Triglavian survey databases are the most important thing that we're looking for here. Those are what sell for your standard ISK per hour income. Once everything's dead, the gate will open, the transfer conduit as it's called, so we then activate that, same as you'd activate any other Stargate in EVE Online. We fly towards it. We should really reload all of our missiles whilst doing that, and if you are at full shields, make sure that you've turned off your shield boosters just so you save up your capacitor. We're in another room here. This has a striking Damavik. So again, we show info, we have a look. Now this is probably going to be Inferno weapons that we use, or yeah, maybe Nova. Maybe Nova. So off we go. Let's look for the lowest resistance and then just shoot with that. It doesn't matter too much. It's just going to help you get faster clear times. So there we are, striking Damavik. Again, it's come nice and close to us. We're orbiting the biocompetitive loot cache. This one, not too much of a problem. These Damaviks aren't going to hit us for big damage. They're not a huge threat to us. We should be able to kill them nice and quickly, nice and easily. So we're going to orbit the biocompetitive loot cache, staying close to that so that we can quickly loot and move to the next room once the striking Damavik is dead. But for the most part, that should be no trouble at all, and you can see we are chipping away through it for the time being. It won't take too long to go down. We're halfway through its armor. Next burst of missiles. Yeah, probably picked the wrong damage type of missiles here, but hey, that's okay. It shows that actually it doesn't matter too much. It's all about clear time. You're not going to suddenly win or lose because you're using the wrong missiles. You're not going to die because you're using the wrong missiles. It's just going to take you longer to clear. And that shouldn't be too much of a huge problem in a T0 Abyssal Deadspace, just a standard Tranquil. There we are with the Damavik dead. We can now again shoot the Triglavian biocompetitive loot cache because that's going to have our actual rewards in it. If you do jump into another room before you've looted it, tough, you can't go backwards. It really eats into your ISK per hour if you let that happen. So just try to remember to loot the biocompetitive loot cache, open cargo, approach, and once we're within 2,500 meters, we'll get the little button on our inventory that says loot all. I like to move the mouse there ahead of time, and I just start spamming click, 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 and boom, loot all. Off we go. We are now going to activate the gate, as we would any other Stargate, fly towards it, reload all our weaponry. Even if you're not sure what type of missiles you're going to use and you're going to end up reloading again in the next room perhaps, it's still worth going in with a full rack of missiles, just in case you don't need to reload. Always reload whilst flying between rooms. And here we are, full health, decent amount of ammo there, full capacitor almost, final room. Ooh, an Ephialtes Lancer. Nice. This is a cruiser, and this thing can actually be a little bit scary. This is a really good example. Now, as a sleeper, you can see that this has no particular resist holds. It doesn't matter what type of weapon you use on it. Now, normally we want to orbit at range, but on something like one of these, we actually want to get closer to it, because this thing has some really these things can have some really nasty weaponry on them, and we want to be close so that we are harder to hit. This one's actually using missiles, which means this doesn't matter, but if you see one of these using like laser beams at you, the same goes for the Charybdis Tyrannos. If you come into a room with the Charybdis Tyrannos, you just want to get as close as possible. Start orbiting it basically at 500 meters. Same with the Vedmak. If you see something called an Overseer or an Overlord, then you want to orbit that thing as closely as possible because that'll make you hard to hit. You'll see the shield booster is keeping up pretty much with the damage. We're taking a little bit, but we shouldn't be taking anything dangerous. We're not going to suddenly hit armor before this thing's dead. You can see that the ship itself, the enemy, the Ephialtes Lancer, is nearly dead, whilst we've barely taken a quarter of our shields. Boom, down it goes. Time to take out that Triglavian biocompetitive loot cache and get the final bit of loot out of this. Now, knowing that the ammunition that's in my pack here is about 5 million ISK, and knowing that the various filaments that I've got in there as well were about 2 million ISK worth of stuff beforehand, you can see on this straight first run I've already made 3 million ISK in loot. Let's see how much we get out of this next loot cache here. Take a little bit of time to drift towards it. Obviously, the faster we can loot this and get out, the faster we can start our next Abyssal Deadspace for more loot. Once you've got a decent amount of loot, you want to type into your search bar at the top left, Concord, and then search for stations. Head to one of those stations and sell your Triglavian database surveys, because those are where most of your money from running Abyssal Deadspace comes from. If you lose all those, yeah, it's a, you know, that's a loss. Now, unfortunately here, looking at the footage, I've accidentally hit C, which means I have managed to filter my search there, which really doesn't help, because now I can't see how much ISK we actually made. But it's going to be around the 3 to 4 million ISK we've made from that one run. Nice and easy, no problems at all. We can actually just pretty much wait here for a second for that Abyssal Trace to disappear, and off we go and make a new one. Jump into a second round, off we go. Good fun times. There we are. You can see I'm just trying to figure out there how much stuff I've all got in the loot. But anyway, it's about 3 to 4 million. In fact, there we can see 11 million in total. We had for a flash for a second there, 11 million total ISK. I went into this with 7 million ISK worth of stuff in the cargo hold. Therefore, I have made 4 million ISK in that run. Nice and easy. One run, 4 million ISK. Just do the math on that one. Anyway folks, that's everything from this video. I hope you've enjoyed this, I hope you find this useful. If you do have any questions about Abyssal Deadspaces, about EVE Online, ask in the comment section down below. Come join the Cat Skull Discord, there's a bunch of folk there who are more than happy to help as much as possible. We even have a dedicated Abyssal Deadspace chat there, where people can ask all kinds of questions and learn everything there is to know about these different Abyssal Deadspaces and how you can start progressing in these and making some seriously high ISK from some of the higher tier ones. Anyway folks, that all said and done, hit a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, thank you ever so much for your support, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!